In 1300 AD, the highest recorded total of the Viking population was 500,000 people, according to Valheim developer Iron Gate Studios. As of this week, just 2 weeks after its early access launch, more than 3 million people have already purchased the Nordic-themed survival game on Steam. Last weekend, more than 360,000 concurrent players explored Valheim at the same time, surpassing the historical records of even Destiny 2 and Grand Theft Auto 5. It's no exaggeration to say that Valheim might be the biggest indie game release in recent memory, and it's certainly among the most successful of all time, at least in terms of its first month. But what exactly is Valheim's secret? Is it the beginning of a new franchise or just another flash in the early access offer? We've updated the sales report to get the latest figures, and it shows no signs of slowing down, says Sebastian Badilak, executive producer at Coffee Stain Publishing. The team, still working hard to comply with its early access roadmap, sold 275,000 units on Saturday, February 13th, its highest number so far. There is much more to come that, hopefully, will keep all these players engaged and bring new Vikings on board, revitalizing the survival genre. If you are not one of those 3 million players, here is the basic explanation of what we are talking about. Valheim is an open-world survival game, currently in early access, with optional online multiplayer for up to 10 players in total. It's a procedurally generated sandbox world in which your character drops with nothing more than a pair of pants. Players must look for food and materials to create their shelter and equipment to help them on a mission to defeat deadly and powerful spirits on a journey to ascend Valhalla. From its earliest moments, the table is served as in most other survival games, but there are some important differences that have clearly aroused the interest of experienced survivors. For starters, repairing things like equipment and buildings costs nothing. No resources, no money, nothing. Everything is free, which relieves a lot of pressure while maintaining the resources for maintenance. In addition to that, the hunger system is designed to reinforce your health and endurance if you are well-fed, but you will not die if you decide not to eat. It is a more lenient version of the survival genre, one that makes Valheim much more accessible than its competitors, without eliminating the challenge. It is also very focused on PvE, which is refreshing, even if it is somewhat ironic that one of the most hostile and deadly periods in human history is the focus of a game that emphasizes joint work and cooperation. While most survival games do not provide any specific objectives beyond the goals you set yourself, they often fall into the categories of build new things or not being killed by zombies bears other players. Valheim has a little more structure, even offering occasional advice and directions through an ingenious spiritual raven. As you progress and develop your character's skills and complete the map, you will unlock new areas with unique biomes that pose new challenges, such as cold weather or have hidden underground dungeons with rare treasures. Everything provides a greater sense of progression than most survival games, even with only 2 weeks of early access. The Valheim combat also helps to raise things. In addition to the different combos and attack speeds depending on the type of weapon, there is blocking, dodging, rolling, fixing the target, and even parry with the correct type of shield. It feels more like an action role-playing game than a survival simulator, especially during its boss battles against mythical beasts. Finally, a great attraction for many of Valheim's players is that there are far fewer conflicts between players than you could find in other survival games. As it stands now, you can activate the ability to attack other players, but unless you attack a friend who gave you the password of his world, you don't have to worry about other players killing you. Iron Gate co-founder Henrik Tunkvist says PvE is Valheim's primary focus at the moment, but it seems that they will eventually add more PvP content, but don't expect that to be the main focus. I can venture to say there's probably never a big PvP part of the game, he says. We hadn't thought about this much before, but it's true that most survival games, unless I know, tend to have a very strong PvP approach. Where Valheim came from. Tunkvist specifically cites The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild as one of the studio's main inspirations for Valheim, which is clearly evident in its artistic style and physics-driven mechanics. Other creative influences include The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, as well as the cooperative survival format of games like Terraria, although it avoids mentioning games that have a more violent PvP approach. As for Valheim's setting, its inspiration is simpler than you would expect. My partner Richard Svensson started working on the game at the time, says Tunkvist, and chose Vikings because it seemed something popular. Basically, between God of War of 2018, rumors surrounding the then unknown Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and even the Nordic-themed real-time strategy games like Total War, Britannia, it is difficult to argue that the Vikings have not been a strong focus for game developers in recent years, and, whether we are currently in line with that fashion or not, Valheim's timing seems to have worked wonderfully. Svensson began development in late 2018 and Tunkvist joined in mid-2019. By 2020, the two had expanded their team to 5 and reached an agreement with their publisher, Coffee Stain. The independent publisher, although young, has a history of great success with games focused on the cooperative, such as the science fiction factory simulator Satisfactory and the procedural underground mining of the FPS Deep Rock Galactic, each of which has more than 40,000 user reviews with an average of extremely positive on Steam. This is beyond everything we could have imagined. Valheim fit very well for them, according to Badalak, although it surely also helped that Tunkvist was a childhood friend. Obviously, we were exploring our own neighborhood, since there are tons of developers there, he says. What we saw in Valheim at that time was a very promising and super cozy cooperative game that was, for us, a kind of optimal point, a kind of passion that we wanted to follow. Why is Valheim so popular? What initially seemed like a good combination turned out to be a great victory for both the editor and the development team. It's incredible, says Badalak. I want to say that we all had great hopes for Valheim and we really thought it would work very well, but this is beyond everything we could have imagined. Valheim's sudden success may be a surprise, but it's easy to see why it has taken off as quickly as it has. Not only does it offer a rather refreshing version of a genre that has been relatively stagnant in recent years, but it is also a more complete experience than many early access players may be accustomed to. With its massive map, its deep feature set, this is particularly evident compared to the rather limited early access releases of other survival games such as Conan Exiles, and an atypical level of technical polish. Valheim is what some might call surprisingly complete according to early access standards. As a result, it seems that everyone, from streamers to Reddit communities, has clung to it. Valheim's subreddit already has more than 100,000 members. That's almost half that Rust, which has been available since 2013, and has already risen to the 14th position of the most popular game on Twitch, as of publication date. Big Twitch personalities like Cockhanage and German streamer Gronk, each with over 1 million followers, have been streaming the game largely since its launch. Valheim's collaborative nature, lo-fi style graphics, and the physics-based open world seem to be the perfect melting pot for crazy shenanigans and incredible settlements for players to build and explore, or just watch. Building better Vikings. Valheim's instant success has not changed the team's development philosophy, although it has forced them to re-evaluate some of their most immediate priorities. It's quite practical to correct errors right now, says Tunkvist. We could not foresee that so many users would use dedicated servers. For example, we had to turn off the automatic update of the list of servers in the game because it was lagging too much because there are too many servers. It is far from being the worst problem the team could have, although it poses another problem beyond the simple lag. There are currently no public servants in Valheim, which means that there are many private servers where people play alone or with small groups of friends or communities. The limit is 10 players per server at this time, and the entire map is generated procedurally every time you release your character into a new world, so there is an inherent incentive to create new worlds and jump between worlds. It's a bit unique that Valheim allows you to take a character through the servers, but it's risky since you could be killed and looted for everything you brought if you're not careful. At least when you die in a solo world, you don't have to worry about other players stealing your team. Since it's an early access game, that technically means it's not finished yet, and Iron Gate Studios seems to have a clear plan. First, there are more options for building and manufacturing houses, followed by a more combat-focused update. As for what's coming up in Valheim, we already know that the Iron Gate team has 4 planned updates for 2021. Home and Heart will focus on building bases, while the update of the Wolf Sect will focus more on combat and history. We want more different enemies and try to have a kind of narrative around that update, says Tunkvist. After that, the plan is to expand into the ocean regions with more boats and boat customization, and then close the year with a new biome called Mistlands. The team hasn't revealed much about their plans for Valheim in 2022, but given its unique position as an overnight success, Mistlands is likely to be the end of the road. It is not known where else the team could send players. Maybe a more tropical biome, or maybe the players will even travel to Valhalla itself. I can't tell you, says Tunkvist. But maybe, if Odin wishes.